Thank you very much. I'd like to start off by saying it's a fantastic honour for the Labour group to be able to bring forwards an amended proposal here. As the smallest group, that is interesting. It's very nice to see that. I will, of course, wait to see the in-depth scrutiny from the Conservative group, which I have absolutely no doubt they will be bringing, and I thank them in advance for that. When we have a look at the budget and we have a look at the measures that we are enforcing tonight, there is no doubt in my mind that there is complexity here. We have heard about budgetary pressures for a long time. I could not come tonight and I cannot fix all of the problems that we are looking at. There is a harsh reality that budgets are cut and things need to be trimmed accordingly. But when I have a look at where some of those cuts are being made, I must take the time and I must look at what we can do to alleviate that. Some of the pressures that are being forced onto the council, we are now choosing to force onto other people. And when I stood for election, when I was in this room for the very first time at the first council meeting, I was told that decisions are made by members. They're not made by officers. And it is us tonight that gets to make decisions about where those cuts are and where they aren't. In this document, I set out that there are choices that are made. There's 8 million in cuts to adult child social care. There's 12 million in increases to waste. Now, it's not for me to go into the details of those. I simply do not have the ability tonight, but it does reinforce that we have a choice and those choices can be mitigated. When I have a look at the impact of these cuts to carers and disabled people within the borough, it makes me consider how we can alleviate this. And as a group, we've set out several things that we can do. Adjustments to recommendation 2.4, and then in 2.16 and 2.17. For those that aren't familiar, I will talk briefly about the pension fund. This isn't an attack on staff. Staff do an impeccable job. I recognise that officers deserve their pensions. However, there have already been alterations to the pension fund. And this is not a pension fund that's on an individual basis. It is a direct benefit pension fund. So it is ring-fenced. If we take a strategic attempt to taper that down by a very small amount, we can alleviate the pressures on some of the most vulnerable within our community. And that's what this sets out to do. A 10% targeted mitigation measure only at a specific subset. And again, I will repeat that that subset will not be impacted by this and that the pension fund is currently overfunded. It sits at 101%. And this alteration, it does not fix, it does not remove the obligation for all payments for disabled people. However, it does mitigate it. Now, on to the next bit was a voluntary senior officer salary reduction. We've had comments about the salary tonight from the chief executive. And again, it is not for me to go into that. I think in fairness, that would be inappropriate. However, suggestions for a voluntary reduction are something that can be made and they can be looked at. And my proposal is less than what I am proposing for myself. I am proposing a cut to my own allowances that I already exceed to pay for some of the things that I do in my role. I do not think then that bringing forward some of these ideas is unreasonable and putting them only on the broadest of shoulders. By any measure, 120,000 is a significant amount of money. As to the main thrust of what I'm getting at though, when we have a look at our councillor income, there's over £1 million in this room. And the suggestion here is a reduction of 15% to my income, to all of your income. That would not take us below where we were when we all started. It is not an unreasonable amount. Likewise, for the special allowances, whilst I appreciate there is work that goes on behind the scenes, some members can be perceived by members of the public to be getting up to £1,000 an hour for committee attendance. And some members who chair those committees turn up 50% of the time. There are concerns here. Members' allowances within the London Borough of Sutton exceed our neighbours. We are some of the highest. It should be considered fair and reasonable to look at this. When we are expecting the most vulnerable in our society to take extra punitive financial measures, why are we not looking at ourselves? I'm going to talk about something now which may ruffle some feathers, but I believe there is an endemic problem within us where we do not consider that we should share in this. We are responsible for these decisions and therefore we should take account of this. Now, carers are unduly being punished here, as are the disabled. And I'm going to comment on something because I was told that 2 weeks ago, members in this room gave up their free time to go after carers. Some of you may look around, you may be surprised, you may think, well, what is Councillor Vesti talking about? But I have on good authority that Councillor Dean, our MP, and other people within here spent their free time going after carers in my ward recently. They did this of their own volition. They went around, and that's how they spent their time. I can see perplexed looks from Councillor Dean. So I'll draw his attention to some of his behaviour, and I'm sure he can correct me if he's wrong. My own family has recently taken on exceedingly extensive caring responsibilities. We suffered a bereavement, left a partner and a child. There was a suicide risk. My own mother is staring down the barrel of a cancer diagnosis. My wife has given up her job as a career break so that we can support family. Yet Bobby Dean and his colleagues decided to turn this into a jolly. He's off on holiday, they said. He shakes his head, but the proof is in the pudding. In his free time, he pursued a man, a carer, reeling from multiple bereavements and distraught things. Now, when it was other people in this room, those comments didn't happen. I bring his attention to Councillor Bartolucci. He sat in the back there. I do not know why Councillor Bartolucci is not there, but it is not for me to cast aspersions why he is not in that group. When Elliot Colburn, our MP, faced his own issues with suicide, nobody in this room went after them. But I believe there is an endemic problem that sits within this room where we are unable to look at our budgets and cut our cloth accordingly. And because of that, I am surprised that no one tonight has suggested already that instead of pushing the onus onto the most vulnerable, that we look inwards to begin with. So I implore you all to support the Labour amendment here, to consider our actions, to think about how that is out there in the real world, and to take accountability for the decisions that we make, and say to the electorate that we are happy to share in their burden. We understand that we make decisions here, that we were elected, and that we will share in that with them. Thank you.